with inviting Dr. Ismahan Al-Wafi, the Executive Managing Director of CGIAR. If you don't know what CGIAR is, please leave the room. Dr. Ismahan Al-Wafi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chalu. And I told Chalu I'm also short, so I need this step. So that's good. This way I see you better. I'm not under the stage. So good morning, colleagues. Really a pleasure to be with you here and to welcome you to this important discussion on the urgency of transforming food system for nutrition. So I'm dividing the work with my colleague Yo, whereby I'm going to be talking more on the digital side, and you're going to be talking more on the nutrition side. So I think today, I have no doubt that we are all here because we share that sense of urgency. I want to start by thanking the African Food System Forum for organizing this event and for their ongoing commitment for addressing the pressing challenges in African food system, and special thanks to the President Agnes Kalibata for all her efforts on that side. The need to transform food system in Africa is more critical now than ever before. The population is rapidly growing, and sadly, levels of hunger and malnutrition are at a record high. Without immediate and decisive action, countless more lives and livelihoods will be lost to climate change, to hunger and malnutrition. And this is the reality, and it demands our full attention. At CGR, we are fully committed to ending hunger in Africa by 2030, and are a major vehicle for getting technologies to farmers at scale. As the world's largest publicly funded agri-food research network, we are dedicated to ensuring a future that is secure in food, nutrition, and climate, leaving no one behind, with a particular focus again on Africa. We know that the CGR can only be considered a success if it is successful in Africa. For over 50 years, CGR has been at the forefront of scientific excellence and building global to local partnerships that work to improve nutrition outcomes through sustainable food, land, and water systems. Today's session is all about transforming those food systems for nutrition, with an emphasis on the pivotal role that data and digital innovation play in this transformation. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and augmented reality have transformed the way we work and are now essential tools in building more nutrition food systems. CGR is a leader in agricultural data from the Global South and has a knowledge repository with over 200,000 files, out of which 45,000 are open source that are scientific publications that can be used to empower AI solutions. However, although there is an ongoing need for high-quality data in the Global South, the challenges we face in achieving wider adoption of the digital tools and the utilization of that data are numerous and complex. The digital divide is one of the most significant challenges we are facing. The Global South remains underserved by digital technologies, particularly women and rural areas, with more than 600 million people still living outside of mobile network coverage. So addressing this divide means that more people will have access to digital technologies that make it possible to monitor food, land, and water system in real time, at a lower cost and with greater accuracy than ever before. With this in mind, we must then provide tailored support for people at all levels of digital literacy and capabilities, which we already know is particularly low among the most marginalized and food insecure people and communities, namely again, women and indigenous people and youth. In terms of nutrition, this would allow us to fully capture and utilize important data and establish trends for evidence-based decision-making and taking effective action to improve nutritional outcomes in these particular communities.
To support this, we must also ensure that decision makers receive timely, reliable, and actionable information so that they can also make informed decisions that could hugely improve agricultural outcomes for African farmers. So there are many solutions and there are many aspects to take into consideration, but thankfully CGIAR is well positioned to leverage its global partnership, data infrastructure, and domain expertise to serve as trusted leaders in the increasingly digital field of agricultural research for development. We currently work with hundreds of researchers with multidisciplinary background and collaborate with our research initiatives, making really that we equip and provide the right tools to everybody to really look into digital R&D partnership with technology leaders to find solutions for small-scale producers. We have an ongoing mission to create products, services that serve farmers in a responsible and ethical way, and that the know-how is needed, that they get the know-how that is needed across really multiple fields of research, science, and food, water, and land system management. Most relevant to today is the discussion is nutrition, health, and food security, one of our 5 impact areas. We are constantly promoting and applying new digital, data science, and AI innovation in this area, and aiming to ensure equitable access to all of those tools and digital, particularly digital tools. So our work in digital innovation generates evidence and innovative solutions through coordinated activities on the enabling environment, the digital divide, systems dynamic modeling, real-time monitoring, and enabling digital platforms. One of our 3 accelerators in our new science and innovation portfolio is called Accelerator on Digital Transformation, that aims to accelerate CGIAR capabilities as a leader in the application of new digital data science and AI innovation. It will create a strong core of searchable data that can be used across research domains and work with partners to rapidly develop digital innovation that achieve their goals. It will also research future technologies that CGIAR should prepare for today and create a center of excellence in areas such as innovation design, data governance, and responsible artificial intelligence. So far, access to valuable data like this has enabled us to develop digital platforms such as Harvest Plus Biofortification Priority Index. And this index is a digital tool that ranks 128 low and middle income countries according to their impact potential for investment in each of the 13 biofortified staple food crops. This technology enables stakeholders and investors to identify needs and opportunities to meet the nutritional requirements of the local population, making sure that the most nutrient-rich food reach those most in need. Digitalization like this allows us to strengthen the food system for better nutrition by improving efficiency, traceability, and market access. The Biofortification Priority Index has had a significant impact in Africa by guiding investment and intervention in biofortified crops to address micronutrient deficiencies commonly known as hidden mechanisms. We have more than 50 million people in smallholder farming families in 41 countries that now benefit from CGIAR biofortified crop. We have over 70 million people in farm households and millions more in the marketplace that are benefiting from the biofortification delivery programs where digital innovation like this have shown to increase nutrition, health, and food security. In Ghana and Mali, we have a program called ECRA, Accelerating Impact of CGIAR Climate Research for Africa, that has implemented a climate-smart technology to increase yield, income, food, nutrition, and security of farmers. By adopting selected digital tools, such as radio, SMS, phone calls, and WhatsApp, farmers are able to access personalized and location-specific climate-smart information to make more informed farming decisions. CGR aim to continue advancing agriculture, digital agriculture in the Global South by building infrastructure, providing equitable access to digital services, effective data utilization, and creating an enabling policy environment. As we look ahead, we know there is an ongoing need for increased investment in digital innovation that have the power to transform Africa's food system to enhance both nutrition and food security. This transformation cannot happen in isolation. To close the financing gap and deliver the impact required, CGR aims to achieve our investment goal of an additional $2 billion per year by 2030. We must also continue to advocate for policies that support the development and adoption of digital innovation, that science shows that the power to transform food system, innovation that can meet the nutritional need of African small-scale farmers and their communities. As always, I urge you all to continue building partnership between government, private sector, local communities, and international organizations. An international organization like CGR and other international agricultural research, because I believe that with science we can achieve the goals we have set and ensure that no one is left behind. I want to thank each one of you for your commitment and contribution to our shared vision. The discussion and session that will follow are so important, and our collective participation followed by inspired action can and will make a difference for Africa's food system. I hope that we all leave this forum feeling energized and motivated for the work ahead, despite the shocking realities that we are facing. Together, we can transform Africa's food system for a more inclusive, nutritious, and climate-secure food. And to close, I would say that digital is one of the leapfrogging, the digital solutions or digital transformation. It's our last chance to catch up with the development in Africa, and if we miss it this time, the gap is going to get much bigger. So be it for nutrition, be it for food security, be it for preserving our environment, there is an opportunity in using technology, including digital technologies, but also other technologies, to make sure that we leapfrog, because at this stage, we can't go with the same pace that we have been doing for the last 50 years. We need rather to speed it up by 100 of times. And that's what I think these technologies will allow us to do so. Thank you so much.
Truly a food system approach in that speech, all the way from talking to tools, to policies, to governance and capacity building, is the fact that notice she said digital tools also include radio, TV, WhatsApp. It's so much more than what we traditionally think of if we're truly trying to reach the last mile communities across the world. And there are products and services out there doing that. So thank you for pulling that out. A little bit of my favorites, I thought I'd do that while I could say it. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Johan Smainen, the Director General of International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI. All over to you, please.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today and to be invited to talk to you. I was asked to present a summary or the key conclusions from our 2024 Global Food Policy Report. It's an annual report that IFPRI produces, and this year's report is on, the cover of the report is on nutrition and healthy diets. It's drawing essentially on almost 3 decades of research in this area from IFPRI staff, but also from many partners who work in the CGR and beyond, who have worked on it, and it delivers evidence on policies and interventions, and particularly focusing on inclusion, equity, but also on the sustainability of these diets. As I think many of you know, when you have worked very hard with a big team and an elaborate effort on the report, you want to have a lot of diversity in there, a lot of variation, a lot of issues and aspects to be analyzed, a lot of detail. And then, of course, you are asked to present this in a couple of minutes, and so the challenge of doing this, I think, is something many of you are aware of. So I want to apologize if I go too quickly and too general on some of the points, because I think one of the key conclusions is that many of the policy recommendations are actually context specific in terms of implementation, etc. All right. So let me just see. So the next slide is. There you go. Just setting the scene very briefly. I think many of you know these numbers already. So these are the big numbers, right? So if you look at the number of food insecure people in the world, the FAO numbers, they are around 800-900 million people in the world. But if you look at insufficient or basically the lack of access to healthy diets, we talk about 3 billion people. So this is a much bigger number. And so here are a number of these additional numbers, like around 2 billion people are affected by micronutrient deficiencies. More than 2 billion people are now estimated to be overweight or obese. More than 1 billion people have increased blood pressure, etc. And so many of these factors, almost all of these factors, are really related to poor quality diets as a main contributor to these problems in the world. And so therefore, focusing on nutrition and healthy diet is really a crucial element in improving the welfare in the world. So these are really large effects. If you look at more particularly on Africa, we see that Africa, of course, is a continent where some of these numbers are highest actually in the world in terms of the rates of anemia, child stunting, micronutrient deficiencies, child overweight and adult overweight growing in Africa as well at the same time. So we have this double or even triple burden of malnutrition. But we should also emphasize that these indicators differ quite a lot across the continent, and so we have to be careful again if we look at specific countries in terms of drawing both looking at the problems and at the recommendations. Again, a very general statement, but an important one is that if you look at African food systems on average, they're dominated by cereals production, and that, of course, is one of the factors in basically healthy diets or the lack of healthy diets, with a lack of basically consumption of nutrition-dense foods, which is associated with that. And an important factor in that is the incapacity, the lack of capacity of households in the region to basically be able to afford nutrient-dense foods, but either because of low income or because the cost of these food packages, food platters are too expensive to afford. So then if we look at the gender effects there, I mean, women play a very important role for a number of reasons. Okay? On the one hand, women are of course very important in terms of determining the diets which are consumed in households. Even as women have entered the workforce globally, also in Africa, and spend more time outside of their home, they continue to be the primary persons, the primary decision makers, and the primary burden of care for families, including the diet. Adolescent girls are going to face special nutritional needs, okay, which have to be addressed for several reasons. The good news is as well that we find that nutrition-sensitive policies, and so this relates both to agricultural programs, to social protection programs, biofortification, which Mahali referred to, are all factors or policies or programs that can be effective in addressing these problems. So there is actually, this is the good news if you want coming out of the report. And so achieving women's empowerment is, in food systems, is really an important factor that should be part of the overall approach, the systemic approach, if you want to change the problems as we see them today. This is, I just have one slide in terms of some of the indicators. So on the left-hand panel, the A panel there, this is the proportion of the population. This is for different African countries which cannot afford a healthy diet, and the numbers are huge. Okay, so most of the countries in Africa are actually above the 80% line. So this is really, really concerning. If If you look at the B and the C panel, this is the prevalence among women and the prevalence among young children of minimum dietary diversity. And you see there, for example, the B panel is around, most of them are around 40 to 60%. So that means that in most countries in Africa, access to basically dietary diversity among women is much lower than it should be. You can't really compare the B and C panel because there are a bit of a different indicators. Nutritionists have explained to me that you have to be careful of making that comparison. But in any case, basically the conclusion of these panels is that a lot of things to be improved compared to the current situation in many of these, almost all the countries in Africa. In the report, we've actually organized our thinking, so we have a very complicated food systems framework. I'm sure you've seen these graphs, I didn't put them in, but we organized our discussions, if you want, also the conclusion around 4 components. One has to do with availability. Are there healthy foods available in the country, in the region, in the place where the household lives? Then can the household access it? And that has a lot to do not just with basically availability in the country, but access in the village, for example, or in the urban area where the family lives. Then if it's available, if it's accessible, can we afford it, or can one afford it? And so this has to do with poverty, with incomes, with the cost of the healthy diet. And the last factor is that even if you can afford it, or if the family can afford it, do they want to afford it? And this has to do with preferences and, of course, education, culture, etc. really play a very important role there. It's interesting, economists tend to talk about preferences. Nutritionists, I learned, talk more about desirability of these things, but basically the concept is really about it. I'm going to go briefly through these 4 aspects, if you want, and some of the conclusions of the report. So clearly, supply-side innovation can help limit, can help the availability of these healthy products, of these nutritious foods in the country or in the region. But also, an important component of that is, of course, about the sustainability of the production of making these products available is an important component there. And so things like investing in crop diversity, increasing the use of orphan crops, biofortification are all important potential components of this. And the report has a special chapter on animal source food, and I think we have a fairly nuanced conclusion on that, making the point that in important parts of the world, actually, it's important to increase the consumption of animal source food, while in other parts of the world, it is probably desirable to lower the consumption of animal source food, and so there is a whole discussion on how to do this best. On the accessibility and the food environments, there is the food environments and VC refers to the value chain. That's really where demand and supply are connected. Okay? And if you look at the share of this part in the value chain, these, even in middle and income countries and higher, lower middle income countries, this is 70% of the value in the food chain is actually in this part. So it's a really big component of the issue here, both in economic terms and in terms of how it is affecting both the producer side, but particularly the consumption side. We've seen very rapid and dramatic changes in that, particularly in lower middle income countries. So we talk about the supermarket revolution, rapid growth of modern retail chains, the hidden middle, because there's so much going on that we don't know much about, because a lot of these are SME companies where we don't have a lot of data on, but we know that a lot of things are changes this. And this is associated with a number of factors, including the growth of the availability and also the consumption of ultra-processed foods. And these are all, I think, the food environment, the value chain issue is a very important component of this issue, of both the problem and the potential solution, I would argue. In terms of affordability, we know that incomes are really a very important determinant of consumption pattern, but also relative prices. So how does a healthy diet compare to the price of a non-healthy diet? And so there are things we find that in general that these healthy diets are relatively expensive compared to calorie-dense foods, and part of it is due to policies, part of it is due to more economic and structural factors, but things can change. There certainly is policy both on the agricultural side and the consumer side in terms of the subsidy systems can change, and of course also the infrastructure in terms of transport, storage, logistics. I mean, that affects both the production side and the consumption side. Okay, so investments in this, improvements in this are really very important. I think also social protection is very important. School feeding programs where you can really work. I think a lot can be done on making this more nutrition sensitive going forward. Preferences then that, again, I think many of you know this very well. This is linked to a number of factors, also culture, education. And so sometimes even when things are affordable, people still do not change their consumption habits because of these factors. Okay, and there's a number of things that can be changed, I think, going forward. It is not easy, it is difficult, but that is something we all have to work on. I think we have to think hard on how to make this possible. Again, the educational role, I think there's a very important generational thing as well, basically teaching children in school, which is really important, just not basically the quality of the school feeding programs for themselves, for capacity building, but also the educational effects are very important. Again, women empowerment plays an important role there as well. So the concluding thing, I think this is just a very general point, okay, but I think important, this is a really systemic problem. So it's not one policy or one action which is going to make the difference. We really need to have a whole set of interventions, a set of changes, a set of transformations that are important. They have to be adjusted for the specific context, specific country, specific region in the country, something. And then, of course, that means leveraging these different food system components at different levels. But what we find also in the report is that if you look at Africa, for example, the significant political commitment, I think, in the past years is showing, was also reflected 2 days ago in the ministerial meeting that we had here, to make things possible, and so that is a sign of optimism that we also draw in the report. I'm going to end with just an advertisement. We at IFPRI and the CGIAR, we've developed this index. It was initially designed as a women's empowerment in agriculture index, so it's now used very widely. More than 250 organizations are using it in 61 countries. It's an indicator of women empowerment initially with agriculture. Now we've expanded it to a number of areas, also health and nutrition. And so this is my last slide to give you a flavor of the type of information that is included in this indicator. And you see these are 2 case studies, one's from Bangladesh, the other one's from Africa, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And these are measuring who is actually making decisions on these components of nutrition and healthy diets. And some of them are very similar, but some of them are quite different as well. For example, who decides to purchase food and health products? So it's the next to last line there. And you see there's very large differences between the outcome indicators between these different countries. So again, I think re-emphasizing or supporting our point on the need for context-specific policies, I would say. Okay, with that, thank you very much.
Consumer, us, we have a role to play in all of this. We're part of the solution, not only as producers and policymakers, but as driving dietary change as consumers. So thank you for that. I think I'll definitely have to get my hands on the report now for sure, especially to look at the numbers. But now we will be introducing our panel. We have 3 amazing ladies. So AK, again, reminding everyone, women's only panel. the chair of the Systems Board of CGIAR. Welcome. We have Ms. Rose Garcia, President of Hula. And then Ms. Hindu Umaru Ibrahim, the President of the Association for Indigenous Women and thank you very much. Welcome. I hope you all are ready to say something controversial. If you haven't said one thing controversial, I'm not letting you leave. For the record. So, just a personal question that I wanted to ask, and the fact that I can ask it because I've got the mic, is around the fact, it was referenced by Dr. Johan in his presentation as well, where in low middle income countries, animal source foods consumption should be increased. We know there's been a large debate going on versus nutrition versus climate around increasing consumption of meat food. So what are your thoughts as women who thought that certain statistics on the last slide have a chance to make some of that decision? As those who entered your roles, what do you think of this little discussion that's happening from a nutrition and climate perspective?
Very much. It's interesting. Well, first of all, we are on African soil, so let's bring the experiences from Africa. The global debate on climate and meat is so polarized. It's polarized in the sense that it is led by people who have a choice versus those who don't have a choice to eat what is available, accessible, and affordable. When you look at the statistics, how do you compare someone in New Zealand or in the United States who can afford to have 500 grams steak almost every day versus someone sitting in Africa who's dying to have just 40 grams a day for their babies to avoid starving? So I think we need to calibrate the debate in the context of the original definition of flexibility. What's available, what's affordable, what's accessible, and what's palatable, which is an exciting twist. But going back to the science in terms of what should we eat, I was part of the Eat Lancet report, and the big thing was it is region specific. We can all talk about the Mediterranean diet, but if I've not seen it, I have no access to it, and I cannot afford it, I need to eat what is available. But if I then put a health lens to it, I have to make sure it nourishes the body. And I think one of the best things that has happened in the food debate or in the agriculture sector, thanks to Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who pushed the sustainable food systems agenda. For a long time, agriculture was a commodity game. But the day we brought in food and sustainable food, it made us think from farm to fork. Our women handle 80% of the food that we produce and consume. What is it that they're producing? They've got their chickens, they've got their goats, they've got cattle. So that's what is available. And in most cases, quantities are regulated traditionally by what is put on the plate. So there is no way we can say do away with meat when that's the food that we have access to. What we have to look at is how is it produced? Is it produced in a sustainable way? Is it nourishing the body? And if we are fighting for increases in quantity, we are not playing catch up to be dead or malnutrition, it's catch up to be well nourished. We can't afford to have stunting children that need 40 grams of meat a day and tell them no meat, just eat a vegetarian diet. It doesn't work.
vegetarian like that. So this way of living is a carbon neutral, is a climate adaptation, is the mitigation that we are talking about. And then those carcass that are producing will emit carbon neutral even possible for the nature. And for us, eating our steak is really like the best because we have food and service to the nature. So, of course, I recognize the need here in Rwanda is really so good, but it's protecting the nature, right? But I think it's like the people say, you are a climate activist. We must think you are eating vegetarian and maybe vegan. You're like, how do you think that? I'm not. You cannot say you want to protect the nature and then because you become vegetarian. Let's be honest, we need to be responsible to protect the nature. We cannot give the excuse to the people who have only those diet and tell them to stop eating that. So being responsible is the developed world have to take the car. Stop all the overdevelopment based on the using of the fossil fuels, exploiting of the natural resources, destroying the nature where the people who do not have the income have just right to follow it. So that way of hypocrisy has to stop. So I went to Washington, D.C. for the Spring Summit of Finance. Then, over the 3 days, in all the presidents in the world, they have from the lunch to the snack to the dinner they try to, everything is like vegan, vegetarian, and that's so hard to explain that. As coming from Africa, I was really like, I know that. I'm like, okay, if I do not give my dinner and stuff, you can see. So then, one of my friends said, are you free this evening? And I went for a barbecue. I'm like, oh my God, that's really what I need. And then he asked me what? He said like, beef grass feed. I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? Grass feed beef? So I have to ask him. So I get there very cautiously, and I'm like, oh, before that we eat, can you just tell me what is the grass feed beef? And he's like, oh, this is the cattle who eat only the grass. I'm like, if the cattle do not eat the grass, what else do they eat? The best one here, very expensive, and it's really like the one who respect the nature, etc. I'm like, well, what you really have to explain to me is that the other cattle going to the restaurant with the people. So then he said like, no, the other cattle, you just like do the agriculture to feed them, so they eat whatever. Like, oh my God, I do understand. So go be vegetarian if you do not eat the beef that can eat grass. In our community, we do know only the grass-feed beef, and we have to protect it.
Reality check, that's all I'll say. Rose, over to you. So, allow me to be the white girl on that one here. I tried to be vegetarian for the last 4 months. I tried. It happened kind of naturally. I was in Switzerland for a work meeting, and I came to a restaurant. I was stuck there for a weekend. I came to a restaurant that was just the most amazing vegetarian food. And appreciate it. Like, let me talk from my white privilege for always because again, reality check, right? And it was really good. And so I thought, at some point in life, my mother became vegetarian. I said, okay, let me be like my mother in my 40s, I'll become a vegetarian. So for the next 4 months, I think the first month, it was very interesting because I ordered things off the menu that I wasn't ordering before. Because I don't know if you know, again, white privilege and lots of choices, right? So you go somewhere and you always pick the thing you like, and now all of a sudden you're picking something else. I can tell you particularly I travel a lot. I remember going to this
restaurant in Abidjan, and the only option was, there was one vegetarian option, it was rice and fried vegetables. At least there were 40 things on the menu. So, what am I saying here? Like, look, I think after about 3 months, one, I got fat. Well, for me, fat, right? Like, it was when we were very self-conscious, so, you know, one of my Rwandan friends when I came here said, "You look a bit more Rwandan." I was like, "Thank you." I put on some more, thank you. And I was like, so again, this is really bad privilege, but let's talk as real people. So at some point I was like, I really felt a craving for chicken, so I went back to my chicken. At the same time, look, I grew up in Tanzania. My dad ran a hospital. And as a child, my favorite food was wali and maharage, which is basically rice and beans. So rice and beans, I could eat plates and plates. My daughter was grown up in Nairobi. Her favorite food is ugali and slangy vegetables, right? So I think, you know, food is so culturally ingrained, right? It does not matter if you are white or black, because like clearly, you know, rice and beans being your favorite. I think this is one of those choices that we let be, right? I can really hear her when she says, "I really like my meat," right? One of the things I really craved when I was vegetarian was raw. Sounds crazy, right? So let everybody be. And these choices, again, I think what Leo was saying before, these are, if we talk about these choices, we come from a position of privilege, right? Making these kind of choices comes from a position of privilege. If we talk in a European environment, you know, we did not adopt electrical cars until there was a Tesla, right? Since then it became aspirational. Before that, everybody thought, you know, remember the Toyota one? I can't remember the name, but nobody wanted that car, right? So if we're talking in a European environment, I think we have to think about that this is then, let's make it aspirational, and coming to what she's saying, hey, you know, the European farming and livestock system is so different, right? We're just talking from a totally different perspective. And my guess is that people who look just like me in Europe will only really start eating, you know, plant-based if it's as good as the steak, right? And people who've grown up eating, that at the core is what we always want to go back to.
In a responsible way is the big question nowadays. So I guess maybe picking on the way you had mentioned science. And I want to refer back to like what Dr. Johan had put up there. The science has gotten better. If we look at we're tackling malnutrition, we're tackling food systems, we have innovations out there. But the numbers have only become worse, especially for women in clothes. So I'd just like you to quickly throw to me, what do you think is holding us back? Could be both.
So the challenge of nutrition, leading to malnutrition, is really driven by the fact that nutrition by nature is multi-sectoral. We're celebrating agriculture that now speaks to sustainable food systems. So fine, we want to produce nutrition and food. So it's going to be there. But we're coming from an era when we're producing quantities of commodities that we could sell for economic gain. If we go back to our roots and say, what are those nutrient-dense foods? They are currently not on the shelf. They are the forgotten grandmother crops, the women's crops, which were grown for food in the villages, but were never developed to be available in big quantities and be affordable. They become a delicacy. So the first call to action is let's go back and collect those. Let's improve them in terms of quantity. Let's preserve their nutrition density. But most important, let's test them for their climate resilience, because that's the challenge. But let's make them palatable to the new generation that never enjoys them as I did when I grew up. The second challenge is that it's now a health issue. More and more with hypertension, diabetes, we know that we need to go for foods with a low glycemic index. But for you to understand that science, you need to be educated. Someone has to provide the labeling of those foods once they are available so that I know they are go-to delicacies. So it's about production, availability, affordability, that's agricultural consistency. It's about nutrition density and the health and safety of that food. It's about education.
It's so about you still do that thing yesterday.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, you can boast about a type of food, but as long as you have to deal with water that's not safe, you're contaminating that food and it's going to affect your health. But most important, it's really about policies, and policies that empower women, empower the younger generation to be able to have a choice. But more important for women, to move away from labor-intensive food production systems, to liberate that time so that they can concentrate on other things rather than 80% of their time going to food production. And that's why the index, the WARE index that Dr. Sweden spoke about, helps us to quantify how much of your time is going into food production versus general livelihood. How can we use science to alleviate that better? So nutrition is complex by nature, it's multi-sectoral. We need to all come up and deliver on the targets we set. And that's why the figures are not moving. The stunting is increasing, obesity is increasing, the nutrition-caused diseases that are caused by malnutrition are on the line because all sectors are not on the ground today. But women empowerment is the key.
Thank you. And I guess to go to you from that, like looking at it from indigenous young people as well, and women leading that march in your world. When it comes to policies, what is your thought there?
Well, I just wanted to jump on what she said, Kathy. It's really very important. You said healthy diet. So healthy diet. I do remember in my community, like our grandmothers, the diet that they are doing, the food that they are producing, they are not saying like nutrients, whatever. It's help them to live from 80 to 100 years and healthy. I think it's not a bad years to live at all. But now with the nutrition change and the new foods that they are bringing to our food box, we start having like the sickness that we do not experience, from cancer to all the diabetes to all the rest of the sickness that we are having. So I think we need to go back to our traditional way of eating, and without checking every single day in the app, did you eat your calories, did you eat your meat, did you eat whatever? So our natural mothers and grandmothers know how to really cook to make us healthy and grow up really in a good way. So I want to complement what you said. Coming back to your question on the science and technology and indigenous women, I have two examples to share with you. So firstly, how you can have the indigenous women who didn't go to school, and of course the indigenous communities as themselves, to get access to the decision making. Let's be honest, my African family here, we are a man-driven society. Getting women to take the decisions is very hard. And then at the community level, in action, more and more hard. So the strategy that I use is how to combine the science, technology, the traditional knowledge of the communities. So I will use a satellite image to do the participatory mapping of the communities. So I map over 5,000 squares of land with more than 700 community chiefs. So to involve the women there, firstly, of course, we give the thought the map, the community leaders, to come and map. So they give the very clear where is the mountain, where is the rivers, where is the forest, where is the different crops from the immediate desert. So then they start arguing with one name of the place or one knowledge. So I let them argue really like They argue for like an hour. And then they say like, will you just like ask the women to come in? Maybe they have some knowledge. So like, yes, they can come. So just one woman stand up. She started explaining in this place during a season that she's taking a different water or she's taking a different food, and she explained how it works, and everyone shut. So I told her, ask the man, what do you think about what the woman said? You just sit there with checking the head and say like, yes, she's right, she's right, she's right. At the end of the day, I said like, okay, well, if you all agree, she resolved the issue that you're arguing with. Why not women cannot come from the beginning and take the decision with you? So that changed the system, and women can come and discuss with the man and take the decisions. So we need women to be in a decision making when we come to the food and organization at the community level. Women know the traditional way of living and the details knowledge, but we need to give them this place. We are not wanting to steal your place as a man. We want to help you, the place that you are lacking. And it's not crashing your work. And I do understand that, especially young man saying that like, oh, there is so women movement there and that are going to be there at present. My second example is we need to elevate traditional knowledge, and especially the knowledge of women on the food, on the environment protection, and climate change. So to do that, the scientists, people have to understand our knowledge are not against knowledge, and the scientists cannot confirm our grandmother's knowledge, because they do have those knowledge. Since a scientist and scientists, even they didn't went to school for 20 years for the PhD, but they went for all their life in the PhD class. How I did that quickly. So, taking the scientists to the communities, just to tell them, go there and stay with the peoples. They come staying, and then suddenly, as we are nomadic, the people start packing the stuff. They say, Hindu, are we moving? I'm like, no, we are not moving. It's going to rain. They say, like, oh, the sky is clear. They say, yeah, it's going to rain. Suddenly, the rain starts, and you see the scientists running under the trees, and our people are just there and looking all those PhD plus and running around all the place. After the rain, they come and say like, how do you know it's going to rain? So like, well, we look at the small arm picking the eggs in the arm, and then we saw this like the wind direction that changed because it's going to rain. So that's why we did. So we need that the science to understand our grandmothers and grandfathers do have the traditional knowledge that will help us to serve the food. It's not the scientists who can farm our knowledge, but we need to go for
something that goes exactly into your space. There was talk of satellite mapping, there was talk about weather patterns, and I would like you to link that to access to finance and what your experiences would be also on access to finance, men versus women, when you're going to have that. And I didn't do that time checks or pass it on.
Okay. The short answer to all of this, and I think what all of us are saying, is leadership, decision-making power for women. You know, whether we are CEOs, ministers of agriculture, or presidents of farm associations. And I think, you know, a long answer here, like, I started a business about 10 years ago, and we developed insurance products against climate risks. Last year we insured something like 6 million farmers, 2.5 million in Norway. We probably raised one of the largest Series B financing rounds last year for $20 million. And every time if I was a guy, I would not tell you what the valuation was, but as a woman, I feel that I would be boasting if I would be talking about that. But the business employs about 120 people, about 2,000 people, 120 people full-time, 2,000 people part-time. 40% of them are women, 50% of my board is women, and I never gave this a thought, right? Because I think as a woman, if you are building a business, you are just hiring for skill set. You are not paying attention It is if you're hiring a man or a woman, whenever somebody tells me, you know, we need to hire a woman for something, I always cringe a bit. I find it really hard. I'm like, okay, I just want to hire the right person. And I know, you know, I think that's when you can really assess those women's skill sets. Now, at the same time, I do realize that it's not the natural way of how things work, as you said. We very much live in a male-driven society here, right? And I'm always reminded that in our business, one of our secrets of why we succeeded is that we did not sell insurance to farmers because no farmer wakes up thinking they want insurance. But we ended up selling to groups, so banks, development institutions, because they still don't wake up in the morning thinking that they want insurance, but they do wake up thinking, I want access to credit. And fine, I'll take that insurance to go with it. You know, they only trust it when there's a payout, but here's the thing, right? So we realized we had to work with groups. And I remember sitting with one of my Nigerian clients. My Nigerian clients were all farmer associations. The largest farmer association was the Rice Association, 10 million farmers. The president was none. The Wheat Association, again, the president was a guy. The Cassava Association, a guy. The Ginger Association was a woman. Now, you cannot tell me that there's only women farming ginger, right, in Nigeria. But that seemed to be the reality. And that meant that for ginger, that was the only crop where women were negotiating the cost of inputs. Because an association, you know, they had power. They could negotiate with the input providers. They could negotiate with the banks. So this was the only crop where women were making those kind of decisions, right? And if you're the one, like in farming, profitability is, you know, I run a business, so I just think about profitability in the end, right? If your cost base determines where you end up, right? So if women do not have an influence over what the cost base looks like, they have no influence of what that profitability looks like.
AKA, and households that as well.
Exactly.
Right? You don't have influence.
If you don't control your costs, like how will you end up with, you know, if you do not control what goes out, right? So I think if I really think about this, you know, if we look at how do we change some of this maths for women, we need more Madame Profits, right? Associations, really making that representation. I think, you know, when I see some of the programs that Agra is running on Values or Hala, particularly the ones actually that are specifically pushing for women. And if you think about, it really starts at education. For me, like I think that education aspect is so important. We think about the current leaders in African agriculture. Like, I don't know if people are familiar with this Rockefeller program that really supported, you know, what have now, the people who were supported under that Rockefeller program are now people like Kina Deshina, like the Agra president, you know. So we have to think about how do we identify those leaders and get them in those leadership positions. Because otherwise, if they don't make decisions, like, you know, we're not changing anything.
Thank you. I think I'm being told I have to wrap up. Sorry, I'm not allowed to take any questions. I don't know, blame somebody else. But, oh, sure.
So I think we've been talking about the changes that are happening, but one thing that has given me hope is a new initiative that we are driving as CGIAR, not only about collecting data and using data to understand whether these figures we keep on saying are not going up are behaving differently, but the new initiative is called FACS. It's a vision for adapted crops and soils for Africa. For the first time collectively, as CGIAR, in partnership with FAO and the African Union, we're going back to those grandmother crops. We're going back to those orphan crops. We now call them opportunity crops. There is a listing of those that we've analyzed for nutrition density and climate smartness, and we are going back to make sure we breed them, there's a seeds available, and that they are available as opportunity crops, not just in Africa, but globally. You will see your millet, you will see your okra, you will see those vegetables that your grandmother fed you with and you can't get. They will And that's how we want to save Africa, we want to address the nutrition challenge, but bring more hope on resilient crops in the face of climate change. So we are responding to the challenge at CGIAR.
Thank you.